alignment has to do with what do we do as we move ahead. I just want to point out that in education, the education of children is like building a temple or building a cathedral. You have to start with the foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, it's very difficult to build a huge, large structure that's going to be sturdy over time. Okay? If you take a look at all of the great temples and all the great cathedrals in the world, you'll notice that these are built over a long period of time. You start with the foundation, then you build the walls, then you build the ceiling, then you build the roof. You can't go from one step to the other without following the steps. Right? So education is like that. How do we prepare? On the demand side, we want to develop and encourage our kids and get them ready so that they are the drivers of their own learning process. Okay? There are a number of ways of doing this. Learning by doing. We're finding out that the kids who are, the teachers who are encouraging their kids to do projects find that the kids are much more interested. I think PMCA awardees are beginning to show that the ones who are particularly successful are the innovations where it's the kids who are driving that process. Okay? If you take a look at, if you're a teacher, you might want to ask these questions. Do the kids want to come to your class every day? Are they dying to come to your class every day? You know? Even before the day starts, they're already lining up outside. Do they want to start working on their tasks right away, or do they have to do they have to wait to be told what to do? And what is the classroom energy like? Are they excited, or are they just sitting around waiting? How do we prepare learners? For young learners, it has to do with good nutrition. It has to do with developing love for learning. And the literature today says that a lot of early childhood play is an important part of it. For older kids, you may have to do remedial, but you have to do the right type of remediation. Okay? For other kids, how much of the time do you spend based on planned activities, and how much of it is things that they can work based on their own interests? And those, we find out that when kids are interested, they can be quite engaged. Okay? And so on. So there's motivational things that we need to learn on, and can we channel this interest into learning types of activities. What's the role of teachers? Okay, well, important to they're the motivators, right? They're the ones who get the kids excited. And so a lot of the literature, a lot of the best practice today is focuses on learning by doing. Project-based learning. We find that teachers who do a lot of project-based learning get their kids really engaged. And by learning by doing is really a good way for kids to internalize the concepts. But the example I have here is here, Thailand, and what he's done. And you notice how, I point out this particular diagram, right? The fishbone diagram here. You see it on the screen. This fishbone diagram, we teach this in schools of management. College level, graduate level. This was developed in Japan, Ishikawa, and it was done for one of these major Japanese factories. And it was a way by which you did problem solving. And here, Punjalumpur is using this in the classroom at the high school level. So it's completely possible. You can bring in this kind of content. This is not content you'll normally see in a textbook, in a high school textbook. Okay? And you just go Google it on the internet and bring it in. And this is all part of the making learning exciting. And from motivated teachers are able to do more for others and for the learning process. And so this is our PMCA awardee from Myanmar, who does, she was doing astronomy in a high school class. But interestingly enough, the astronomy was not to teach English. The astronomy was to teach language, was to teach English. And she was using it to introduce new vocabulary into the process. At the same time, try to bring content into the classroom. Okay. Technological interventions, our friend from Malaysia, Zainuddin. And this is where using IT as a method, as a tool for connecting kids. And what's interesting and very exciting about this project is it's not limited to a classroom in Malaysia. But because of internet, it's able to connect to classrooms all over the world and to do going back and forth. What I like, the one example that was brought out was you had kids from two different countries, I forget now, was Colombia and Malaysia, who don't speak each other's language. But one of the things they did was they got together, and over a period of a few weeks, they put together a Bahasa Spanish dictionary of terms. So they identified terms that was common to both of them, and then they did the translations, and they taught each other the language, but they also taught each other the concepts, and using the internet for that. From Indonesia, Erwin, who took a look at, who was doing an interesting thing with science. And in this particular case, what he had there was, since he wanted to talk about electricity, but you know, sometimes you don't have the equipment. So this is actually, it turns out that you can use paper to put together this science kit on electricity, because paper, even though it's a weak conductor, is able to do the types of things, the same concept that you want to teach for electricity. And so he does this kind of kit. Okay? And then lastly, on school management, case of Vietnam is organizing it so that in this particular case, organizing it across different schools, so you can have partnerships. Right? Okay, so this is the last of the slides. What kinds of tips for schools and school systems? Number one, measure. You want to measure and identify gaps in learning, because that's important, and there are different tools to do that. Number two is you want to track the progress by class and by individual students. So those who are falling behind, you know what to do. Year on year, you can begin to start at what are least learned skills so that you can make changes along the way. Number three, you want to test students regularly, because that's the way you know what you are going to be doing. Four, you want to have balanced assessments, because one assessment is not enough. You might want to do testing, you might want to do projects, you might want to do individual evaluations. Children are, human beings, we want to take a look at for many dimensions. Okay, so one way of testing is not going to be sufficient. Once you have decided what you do, then you need to have good course design. But good course design is not sufficient. Designing something does not solve the problem. You've got to also follow through. You've got to have good, you have to facilitate the learning through action, projects, and different ways of doing it. And lastly, you want to benchmark to get ideas for improvement from best practices from other countries, so that it gives you ideas on how you can be better at doing all of this. Okay, so these are the types of things that you do. And I'll end with a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who was a founding father in the United States, himself an inventor and a statesman. And he said, "Tell me and I forget. teach me and I remember, but involve me in what we're doing, and I will learn. Okay? And so this is Benjamin Franklin, the founding father of the United States. And let me just show you. These were the references that I used. You see that learning is the World Bank Development Report for 2018. You can download that from the web. Disrupting Class is by Clayton Christensen, who's a Harvard Business School professor, who used to talk about innovation, and then he applied it to the classroom. Okay? Ken Robinson is an educationist. Out of the Ordinary is the book that we put together on the PMCA 2015. Awardees, Howard Gardner, Multiple Intelligences. And then the last one is a World Bank report on Latin America called Great Teachers. And that's an interesting read too. You can download that from the website of the World Bank. Okay, so I hope I gave you some ideas about the topic today, and I hope it's useful to you. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask me during the break, I'd be happy to answer any of these. Thank you very much for your kindness.
Thank you very much, Professor Luz. So tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. So that tells a lot on how you can get your student to learn effectively. So thank you very much, Professor Luz, for sharing with us a very interesting and thought-provoking. Many of us have put children to school, but the learning process is difficult. And the way Professor Luz mentioned to us is aligned very much with Her Royal Highness, Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn. So Her Royal Highness philosophy in helping our student is that, you remember Her Royal Highness always have a project like school lunch program. You see in the news many of the time. Every time she will go to the police border patrol school and have school lunch program and raise chicken to get the kids to have eggs to cook or grow vegetables so that they can have food. This is the foundation of what Professor Luz mentioned, is the kids cannot learn if they don't have enough food or good nutrition. So Her Royal Highness also do the foundation of learning. Then when the stomach is full, then the brain can start thinking. Now it's your turn, taking over from Her Royal Highness, trying to lay the foundation of good school. Teach them, but not to teach them, but involve them in the learning. But forget what Dr. Luz said, or call him Mike Luz. He said that you also have to measure them along the way in order to find out whether they learn. And he gave us a tip. So thank you very much for the insightful. And by the way, you're hearing, he said that he used a reference from Harvard. He's also a graduate from Harvard School in the US as well. So thank you.